Good evening and welcome to this edition of News Extra. You know, it is the news bulletin that brings you news of what is happening around you and beyond with that extra touch. Tonight is no different as we take off from the villa where the federal executive met and took decisions that will continue to steer the ship, Nigeria, in the right direction. Another coup in Africa. You know where that is. We have the latest as ECOWAS leaders gather tomorrow for a solution. We thought the National Assembly is on recess, but the lawmakers are still busy. We have updates on what they have been up to. You know, today is World Humanitarian Day. Watch out for what has been going on and the human angle stories we have tonight. All these plus much more on the coronavirus pandemic. You think that's all? No, there is more. But you have to stay with me to get it all. After all, the taste of the pudding is in the eating. I am Fatima Umar and this is News Extra. You're welcome. We begin with FEC. The Federal Executive Council has approved 3.975 billion naira for the completion of outstanding federal secretariat projects in parts of the country. The Minister of Works and Housing, Babatunde Fashola, announced this while briefing journalists after the council's meeting, presided over by President Muhammadu Buhari. State House correspondent Adamu Sambo reports on this and other resolutions adopted by members at the weekly meeting.
The Federal Executive Council meeting, which lasted about 5 hours, discussed extensively a memo submitted by Works and Housing Minister Babatunde Fashola on public housing. Consequently, a proposal of 3.975 billion naira cost of variation for the completion of outstanding federal secretariat projects in the country has been approved. The projects, who started since the year 2011, are those in Anambra, Bayelsa, Nasarawa, Oshun, and Zamfara states.
These secretariats are necessary to enable us house federal workers in these states. The problem arose from the creation of states, new states. So in asset sharing, some of the old states took the old secretariat, and so our staff in those states across all federal ministries are either in rented official premises for their work or squatting in state government's premises. Council approved this variation, and the intention is to enable us complete the project. You might recall I briefed you before sometime last year about an approval for the award of the furniture. So all the furniture has been complete. They're in the warehouse, so it's just for us to complete the buildings now and install them.
With 13.5 billion naira already expended, the 5 federal secretariat projects will now be completed at 17.5 billion naira.
The council approved a very important infrastructure project.
For the FCT Minister, Muhammad Musa Bello, adequate supply of potable water for the city of Abuja, the nation's capital, is a matter of priority. His memo on the rehabilitation of the Lower Usuma Dam Water Treatment Plant Phase 2 at the cost of 1.5 billion naira was approved by the council.
As you know, the water treatment plant is a very, very important infrastructure project. And the contract is to rehabilitate that treatment plant because it has been in operation for about 30 years. And it all fits into Mr. President's agenda of providing needed infrastructure and also rehabilitating already existing infrastructure. And by the time it is done, then the water treatment plant will continue to provide service to the residents of the Federal Capital City for maybe another 30 years to come.
The meeting of the council, Nigeria's highest policy decision-making body, was the 21st in its series for this year and 12th to be held virtually in line with the COVID-19 safety advisory. This is part of efforts at controlling and containing the spread of the global pandemic, which has so far recorded more than 980 fatalities in the country. From the State House, Adamu Sambo, NTA News.
The unconstitutional ouster of President Ibrahim Boubacar Keita by a mutinous military in Mali is considered an occurrence that must not be allowed to stand. Onenge Fanface has an update on the political and security implications of the coup d'etat on the African continent.
The Malian military says the newly created National Committee for the Salvation of the People is to oversee a political transition towards general elections. International institutions and world leaders, however, insist that the mutiny in Mali is unconstitutional and unacceptable. United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres is demanding unconditional release of Mali's leaders and restoration of constitutional order. Similarly, the African Union Commission condemned emphatically the arrest of President Keita and his Prime Minister. French President Emmanuel Macron urged the soldiers to return to barracks, while the United States says extra constitutional change of government is unacceptable.
If between terms leaders become unpopular, I think the followers too should be patient enough, since their constitution says there's a tenure, and this tenure has not expired. Why should they now go against their own constitution?
Analysts also see the mutiny as a security threat to the West African sub-region.
Mali has been a launchpad for terrorist organizations. They have been launching attacks on neighboring countries of Niger and Burkina Faso. It has led to the death of over 4,000 people, with mass exodus of people, creating refugee problems. Now, we do not want a situation, and no country will want a situation, especially ECOWAS, want a situation in Mali to deteriorate further, because it will further compound our own problems in West Africa, especially the Boko Haram activities.
The Malian military has already imposed a dusk-to-dawn curfew in the country. In Abuja, Onengiye Fanface, NTA News.
Meanwhile, President Muhammad Buhari will tomorrow participate in a virtual extraordinary session of the Authority of ECOWAS Heads of State and Government. The recent political crisis in Mali is expected to be at the top of the agenda. Reactions have begun to trail the mutiny in Mali, leading to the resignation of President Ibrahim Boubacar Keita, with ECOWAS suspending and placing economic and financial embargo on that country. Onenge Fanface now takes us through the timeline of the crisis, from disputed election to the president's resignation.
Mali's recent turmoil began with a coup carried out in 2012 by soldiers opposed to what they saw as a weak response to a growing separatist insurgency by Tuareg rebels in the country's north. In 2013, Keita was elected with a mandate to pursue peace talks, and a deal was signed with some rebel groups, granting the sparsely populated north greater autonomy. Keita's re-election in 2018, which opposition claimed was marred by irregularities, worsened the growing frustration among the public, especially the youth. Weeks of protest by opposition followed, demanding the resignation of Keita, accusing him of allowing the country's economy to collapse, and mishandling of the country's security situation led to his resignation. The soldiers behind the coup, who called themselves the National Committee for Salvation of the People, appeared on state television in military fatigues, pledging to stabilize the country. The Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS, is now calling for the formation of a unity government, resignation of lawmakers whose elections were called into question. The bloc has already suspended Mali and shut down all air and land borders to the country. In a tweet, Nigeria's Minister of Foreign Affairs, Jeffrey Onyema, said Nigerian government unequivocally condemned the coup d'etat and demanded the immediate and unconditional restoration of constitutional order. In Abuja, Onengiye Fanface, NTA News.
Vice President Yemi Osinbajo has underscored the commitment of the First Lady Aisha Buhari towards addressing the scourge of malnutrition and many more challenges of women, children, and other vulnerable Nigerians. This came to light at the one-day virtual National Nutrition Summit in Abuja, put together by the Aisha Buhari Foundation in collaboration with relevant stakeholders. State House correspondent Aliu Kabir reports.
The online one-day National Nutrition Summit brought together key stakeholders in nutrition and other relevant organizations with key objective of putting all hands on deck towards complementing the effort of government at all levels to collectively address the scourge of malnutrition in Nigeria, taking into cognizance the country's ranking in the global chart. While applauding the First Lady of Nigeria for her resilience and commitment in this regard, the Vice President, Professor Yemi Osinbajo, who is also the Chairman, National Council for Food and Nutrition, dwelled extensively on the effort of government towards addressing malnutrition in the country, adding that the implementation of new national multi-sectoral plan on food and nutrition, as well as all effort towards sustaining funding and the proper education and public enlightenment are key. The First Lady, who was represented by the wife of the Vice President, Dolapo Osinbajo, applauded the effort of the government at all levels and all the relevant stakeholders towards fighting malnutrition, putting emphasis on the need to continue focusing attention at improving the condition of malnourished children despite the current global pandemic of COVID-19. While acknowledging the effort of all stakeholders, the First Lady also reaffirmed her determination to remain firm in this cause, and she urged all the key players to continue playing their roles in this direction in order to secure the future of Nigerian children. The Minister of Health, Dr. Osagi Ihanire, and that of State Budget and National Planning, Clem Agba, alongside the Senior Special Assistant to the President on Women Affairs and Administration, Dr. Hajosani, and other stakeholders reaffirmed their commitment towards ending malnutrition in the country. In Abuja, Aliu Kabir, NTA News.
The emergence of the coronavirus pandemic reinforces the reality that the most vulnerable segment of the society usually suffer more during crisis situations. As the global community marked this year's World Humanitarian Day, the National Commission for Refugees, Migrants and Internally Displaced Persons took cognizance of the plight of women as a critical mass of the vulnerable group in the society as it convenes a virtual conference on building resilience of women during the COVID-19 era. Olabode Arewa tells us all about it.
Veronica Chongi and Dosio Soja are among internally displaced persons in Benue State. They are trying to make the most of their situation amidst the coronavirus pandemic. They are not alone, as the United Nations Refugee Agency estimates that in 2019, 50.8 million people were displaced worldwide, with more than half of them being women and girls. Back home in Nigeria, the poor living condition of the over 2 million people who are displaced by humanitarian crisis makes them vulnerable to the spread of COVID-19. Participants at the forum suggested a roadmap to integrate the needs of displaced persons, especially female refugees, into state and local level emergency action and coordination measures.
The issues of access or lack thereof, and then the care, the quality of care, the poor quality of care.
Most of these IDPs that are going back to their villages in the northeast and may want to access health care in the general hospital or the primary health care centers within those places, there is need for government to provide adequate security for healthcare workers.
They also resolved to work with multinational partners in reducing the health-related burden for displaced and refugee women and girls living in IDP camps, while strengthening the capacity of frontline health and social workers in the early detection and referral of COVID-19 cases to the authorities. In Abuja, Olabode Arewa, NTA News.
Comprehensive, third party. These are the two most popular insurance covers. Of course, there are other insurance covers for fires, buildings, and even lives. Bad news is insurance is one thing nobody wants to take, despite its necessity and in some cases mandatory nature. Well, good news is the Speaker, House of Representatives, Femi Gbajabiamila, is assuring operators in the insurance industry of the cooperation of the legislature for improved improved services. This was in Abuja at an interactive session with a delegation from the Nigerian Insurers Association. National Assembly correspondent Vivian Idekpefo reports.
Nigeria's insurance industry suffers from low subscription, which experts say is responsible for its marginal contribution to GDP. To revamp the sector, the National Insurance Commission, NICOM, issued new guidelines for recapitalization with 30th September 2021 as final deadline for compliance. To strengthen its operations, the House of Representatives has commenced the process to amend the Insurance Act. Speaker Bajabia Miller describes the sector as key to the nation's economic development.
The House of Representatives is always, we're always happy to collaborate with sectors, businessmen, professionals such as yours, because I always tell people that governance is not about any one person. It's not about those who are elected. Governance is about everybody.
We assure you that we would very much like to, collaborate with you and collaborate with the House to seek to improve the contribution of insurance to the GDP.
Analysts believe that with the right legislation, Nigeria's insurance industry has potential to support the economy post-COVID-19. Vivian Idekpefo, NTA News.
In the meantime, the Senate Joint Committee on Finance and National Planning has invited the Minister of Interior to appear before it on Thursday to explain the contractual agreement between the ministry and its technical partner, Continental Transfer Technique Limited, which allocated to itself 55% revenue generated from expatriate resident permit fee paid by non-Nigerians to the Nigerian Immigration Service. This followed the revaluation by the Comptroller General of Immigration, Mohammed Babandede, at the 2021-2023 MTEF and Fiscal Strategy Plan public hearing in Abuja. John Yaku has the details.
The contractual agreement, which started in 2007 with initial payment of $350 per expatriate resident permit, has graduated to $2,000 per permit with a sharing formula of 55% to Contact and 33% to Nigerian government.
Contact collects 55%. Federal government 33%. FG 33%. Nigerian Immigration Service Operation cost 7%. Nigeria Immigration Service 7%. Immigration 7%. Ministry of Interior 5%.
The committee frowned at this arrangement, which it says denies Nigerian government the needed revenue, at the same time discourages investors into the country.
This company are determining the rate of this payment.
Are we supposed to be working for Contact?
There is need for us to go on a very, very, very elaborate investigation into all of this in a bid for us to get more revenue for us as a country.
The Nigerian Civil Aviation Authority at the hearing was queried over the expenditure of 11.1 billion naira without approval. The committee therefore requested the authority to also appear before it on Thursday with the Minister of Aviation for further explanations. It cautions that any government agency, whether fully, partially or self-funded, that fails to appear before it will risk zero allocation in the coming fiscal year. In Abuja, John Yaku, NTA News.
Thank you, John Yaku. Up ahead, who is providing shoulders for others to lean on and where? Plus, Barrowport beckons, but are the ships docking? We shall find out if your guess is as good as mine when News Extra returns shortly. Thanks for staying. Unity and dedication to humanity. That is the motto of the Defense Officers' Wives Association, DEPOA. This is exactly what played out at the DEPOA Secretariat in Abuja, where 300 widows and other vulnerable members of the society received a message of hope, and experienced good neighborliness. Defense correspondent Najatu Tijani tells us all about it.
Carrying bags laden with various food items, these women, mostly widows, are beaming with excitement at what Husseina, mother of 10, and others call their good fortune.
I feel relieved. Why? Because for someone that will remember you in such a condition.
While adding value to humanity stands as the crux of its mission, recognizing the selfless service of the fallen spouses and restoring the dignity of those left behind is another motivation behind the gesture.
This is the second phase for palliatives from the poor to our widows, the orphans, widows of our fallen heroes. Put a smile on their faces.
Well, I'm here on behalf of the Chief of Defense Staff, General Abayomi Gabriel Onshakin. The message he has for the orphans and widows at this time is to take advantage of the materials they are getting.
The 300 beneficiaries include those with physical challenges. Meanwhile, DEPOA plans to reach out to more people. Najatu Tijani, NTA News.
We'll take you to Ondo State now, where the youths in the state are now taking their destinies in their own hands by acquiring necessary entrepreneurial skills to be practically enterprising and self-reliant rather than chasing white-collar jobs that are no longer forthcoming. Olajide Bello tells us more about such intervention programs on youth entrepreneurship in Ondo State.
Meet Kayode Ayodele, a graduate of philosophy from the Adekunle Ajasin University in Akungba Akoko. A chat with Kayode revealed that he is presently waiting for his call-up letter from the National Youth Service Corps for his one-year service to his country. In the wake of the coronavirus pandemic ravaging the world, with Nigeria not excluded and by extension Ondo State, Kayode resorted to being productive with his polythene bag business.
It's better for you to build a brand on yourself and establish on that brand. And once you can get that, even the government will want to negotiate with you rather than you waiting to submit CVs and all those stuff.
It is a policy of the Ondo State government to develop the entrepreneurial spirit and talents of youth towards self-actualization. The government is therefore leveraging on the huge agricultural potentials of the state.
If the government have the cooperation of the youth and go back to the land and join hands with the government in the area of cassava planting, cocoa plantation, and these other agricultural inputs that the government is giving as a support to them, to a very large extent, many of the youth in the state will be engaged productively.
As Ondo State prepare for the governorship election on the 10th of October, concerned individuals and institutions are focusing on youth when they talk of violence at elections.
They should all embrace peace. There's nothing that violence gives. It only brings about chaos.
As the United Nations turns 75 and with only 10 years remaining to make the 2030 agenda a reality for all, trust in public institutions and active youth involvement becomes imperative for the dreams and aspirations of the likes of Kayode Ayodele to be achieved. From Akure, Olajide Bello, NTA News.
Now, building the capacity of the poorest of the poor to enhance their living conditions and enable them contribute to national development is one of the key components of the social investment program of the federal government. Achibong Basi reports that to achieve this, Cross River State Cash Transfer Unit, in collaboration with the National Cash Transfer Office, is building capacity of its staff on the livelihood pilot to deliver services at local areas.
Livelihood support, which is one of the three components of the federal government's National Cash Transfer Program, seeks to uplift beneficiaries out of poverty by making them financially independent. Cross River State, which is blessed to be among the pilot states for the conditional cash transfer, can also boast of two of its local government areas being selected for the pilot phase. Evaluating understanding of trainees in providing a livelihood framework is a key feature of the day's activity.
Even though some people are benefiting now, it's going to go around.
Most of them are not able to even go to their sources of livelihood.
But unfortunately, the coronavirus pandemic has affected the smooth delivery of the program, with more time and resources being required for the implementation. In Calabar, Achibombasi, NTA News.
To education now, it is becoming increasingly difficult for those who are not ICT compliant to effectively engage in certain day-to-day activities, especially in urban areas. We all know ICT is the way to go now. It is therefore not surprising to hear Governor Bala Mohammed of Bauchi State describe the federal government's Universal Basic Education Zonal Model Schools project for information technology as a benchmark for excellence. He made the assertion when he visited the project site in Bauchi. Mahmoud Ibn Mohammed tells us all about it.
The Bauchi Zonal Model School is one of the 7 currently under construction in the 6 geopolitical zones of Nigeria and the FCT. Expected to provide information technology-based teaching and learning, the schools will take the lead as centers of excellence for nursery, primary and junior secondary schools.
We reflect back, most public schools are in very sorry states today. But this drive by UDEC, of course in partnership with SPEP, is going to deploy the state of the art.
We must be able to prepare our children, our new hope, our tomorrow, so that they can compete positively with their counterparts from either part of the country and other part of the world.
The Zonal Model School project of the Universal Basic Education Commission is considered as an indicator for the future of basic education in Nigeria. In Bauchi, Mahmoud Ibn Muhammad, NTA News.
And for every infrastructural project, there are expected socio-economic benefits for the economy, the people, and society at large. So when a multi-billion naira infrastructural project is completed but remains dormant for more than a year, it becomes a concern. This is the case of Baro Port in Agayi, local government area of Niger State, which was inaugurated in 2019, but yet to be operational. John Yaku, who was there with some National Assembly members, is back and tells us more.
The 109-year-old Baro Port, the first inland port in Nigeria, was established in 1911 by the colonial administration. Then, it was basically to convey raw materials from the north to the southern parts of the country. After Nigeria's independence, activities at the port began to shrink to its final end.
Even Her Majesty's ship, the Queen of England, when her ship was brought to Baro, for the northern elders, northern leaders to go and see, I was opportune to be one of the small boys selected from our primary school here to go and see that ship. We entered the ship.
The Baro Port got respite when former President Umaru Musa Yar'Adua in 2009 awarded contract for its construction, but the port suffered neglect until President Muhammadu Buhari pushed for its completion and final inauguration with state-of-the-art port facilities to ease the pressure on Nigerian roads, improve water transportation, create jobs and generate revenue for the country.
Since the inauguration of Baro Port on 19th January 2019 by President Muhammadu Buhari, no economic activities have been going on at the port. This is what informed the visit of members of the National Assembly and State House of Assembly within the Niger South Senatorial District to Baro to find out why the port is not functional.
The challenges of the full takeoff of the port include access road, abandoned rail transport and irregular dredging of the river.
Now the road now be problem way better first because of if you run just now, would not get any go.
The railway lines is not completed. So honestly, Baro Port cannot take off without road and rail. So we appeal to the government of Nigeria to make sure before 2023 this project is being completed and put into
reality.
We have seen the road. We'll go back to our legislative chambers, and move motion.
A big special appeal to Mr. President to ensure that this is done. Our people are crying that a lot of money has been sunk into this project and it's abundant.
When fully operational, the port will carry out ferry services, port cargo services, tanker services, fishery development, as well as tourism and recreational sites, among other things for revenue generation. John Yaku, NTA News.
To agriculture now. The agricultural sector is a potential gold mine in Nigeria, and the federal government, through a number of policies and programs, is reviving the sector. Rice production is particularly gaining national attention, and the Lagos state government has keyed into this initiative. Hingino John Adams take a look at how the state government is assisting rice farmers to increase their yield.
Nigeria has lost a fortune to the importation of rice over the years. Looking inward became inevitable, which was why government banned its importation to support local rice farmers with the hope of enhancing food security and job creation. Obitunde Akinlolu is a rice farmer from Badagry. He has 10 workers employed on his 20 hectares of rice farm. With the ban on importation of rice by the federal government, Obitunde, just like other rice farmers, needs support to switch from manual to mechanized farming to meet the demands.
We also want to encourage and employ young youth out there to see to agric. If you can do music as a business, if you can do street things as a business, you can also do agric as a business.
Being in my rice farming now is 10 years now, and it has helped me in so many ways that at least I have my own things that I'm doing.
In Lagos State, presentation of equipment such as knapsack sprayers, high-yielding seeds, rain boots and farm coats, among others, to rice farmers is what the government is doing to boost the productivity of rice farmers.
A lot of what we import is actually overprocessed. What you end up getting most of the times is white rice, meaning the bran is completely off, which is actually the proteinous part of the rice grain itself. What we are going to be producing here is local rice, but it's going to be very good quality. That's why we are getting the improved seedlings.
With the construction of 32 metric tons per hour Imota rice mill, farmers like Obitunde will contribute to bridging the rice demand deficit of the state and the nation as a whole. In Lagos, Hingino John Adams, NTA News.
Meanwhile, the ceasing of rainfall for over 3 weeks and still counting has continued to generate concern among farmers in Benue State, with many speculating it could lead to poor yield. Ode Moses takes a look at the plight of farmers amidst the prolonged break in rainfall and its effect on agriculture.
Rain break, also known as August break, is a period within the month of August that rainfall usually witnesses a temporary break. The break, which is a yearly reoccurrence, often elicits reactions from different schools of thoughts with different scientific postulations. As this year's August break continues, farmers in Benue State are among the most affected as their crop growth has stunted due to the prolonged delay in rainfall.
If we import all the corn we plant, the corn want to produce, and there's no rain now, no way to produce.
There are some farmers that have cultivated rice, they can't plant, because even if they plant now, there is no water for the plants to germinate. There are some places farmers need to spray chemicals, and without water, the chemicals will not be effective.
Benue State last experienced rainfall in July 2020. A renowned climatologist, Bernard Tiobe, while analyzing the prolonged break, observed that the situation is a break in the farming period that provides a window to farmers to prepare for the second lap of the farming season.
It caught people unaware, those that were not aware, and they started planting. Those crops that were planted during this long dry spell may not survive.
Nigeria's population and economy are linked to climate-sensitive activities, including rain-fed agriculture. Therefore, An understanding of current and historic rainfall trends and variations is inevitable to have future development, especially in the agric and hydrological sectors. In Makudi, Ode Moses Ajao, NTA News.
There is something unique about village life that if you don't know it, you probably cannot understand. In parts of Nigeria, traveling away from most cities and urban centers reveal the hinterland's real beauty of hardworking people in natural habitat with agricultural activities and sense of belonging for national development taking center stage. If this rings a bell, here is Hamza Musa Makarfi with the sights and sounds from Kutumusha Migili community of Nasarawa State.
The cockerel crossed to protect its territory, but it is also an alarm wake-up call at dawn. Traveling along the road are early starters to meet up with the demand of the city center. This is the season of harvest and abundance of fresh vegetables and agricultural produce. The journey progresses and the echo of typical African drum is in the air, heralding some community work taking precedence. Women are backbone of agricultural activities. Mary Odoma and others understand the age-long tradition of working together to grow the local economy.
As I work here, no problem like that.
Under the new normal of COVID-19 pandemic, a helping hand is desirable to observe protocols and end community transmission so that others can take a cue. There are advantages in village lifestyle, says Emmanuel Zetela in charge as local chief due to the old age of his father. He says here it is quiet, unpolluted and peaceful as we grow enough food for our people.
In terms of living a life, we are living a good life here.
We enjoy living together because we are almost one blood.
These are some of the things those who live in rural communities clearly understand and appreciate. They are hopeful. Appeal for attention may soon make an impact as water supply, road construction and electricity will soon reach their doorstep under the government's focus for rural development. Kutumusha community, the typical African village in a world of its own, peaceful and hardworking. Elafia, Hamza Musa Makarfi, NTA News.
Oh, thank you so much, Hamza. That so much reminds me of home. When we return from this next break we are about to take, it is... Welcome back. Germany might vaccinate some group of people living in the country against coronavirus early next year. As a fresh outbreak of coronavirus infections in Victoria, Australia's coronavirus hot zone eases further on Wednesday. These and more with Uche Oguchukwu on Global Update on COVID-19.
A fresh outbreak of infections in Victoria, Australia's coronavirus hotspot, eased further on Wednesday while the country signed a deal to secure a potential COVID-19 vaccine that it plans to distribute cost-free to citizens. Similarly, the head of Germany's vaccine regulator said some groups of people living in Germany could be vaccinated early next year against coronavirus. Infections in Germany have risen in recent weeks. On the African continent, the WHO COVID-19 dashboard indicates 1,141,062 cases have been recorded, out of which 26,365 patients died. In Nigeria, the Center for Disease Control puts the total confirmed cases at 49,895, 37,051 discharged, and 981 deaths, with 410 new cases reported in 15 states and the Federal Capital Territory in the last 24 hours. Zimbabwe government, after a weekly cabinet meeting, decided to shorten an overnight curfew imposed to combat the coronavirus pandemic and extended business hours despite rising cases. The country has recorded 5,308 cases and 135 deaths. And the tally from Johns Hopkins University Coronavirus Resource Center at 6 p.m. local time shows the world has recorded 22,392,238 positive cases and 15,121,999 recoveries. That's it on COVID-19 update. I am Uche Ugochukwu.
COVID-19 has provoked series of social discrimination born out of fear of contagion, but which could have their consequences on survivors. In this special report, Uzezi Arure takes a look at the impact of stigmatization on survivors and the way out.
Since the outbreak of the coronavirus pandemic, many have suffered social discrimination and stigmatization for contracting the virus or for being close to a previously infected person.
On the 14th of March, when we attended the NVCA, my friends called me to even go with me that day. After 10 days, that was on the 24th of March, we were told to self-isolate. And then I started receiving calls to ask me if I was already exhibiting symptoms. One even called to laugh at me. I went to bed most nights crying and all that. When I wake up in the morning, I'll be thankful that at least I've not died though, and all that kind of thing like that. So it was really, really psychologically draining for me.
Coming back from the isolation center, it was only my family I got. Friends were no longer relating the way they used to. No calls, SMS reduced, even the chats reduced. And at the office, you could sense the discrimination. People, group of friends that we used to go to the canteen together, they no longer call me to go to the canteen. And when I see a group of people gathered that we used to discuss politics and all that before, when they see me coming, everybody will just move, they will just disperse.
Although the federal government has, through the mass and social media, clarified that there is no reason for discrimination, confusion, anxiety and fear around those who have suffered from the virus, as it has been established that getting close to such people may not necessarily expose them to COVID-19.
It can lead to depression when they are abandoned, and now when it is severe, it can lead to a total mental breakdown. They have this fear of coming out of their home. They have this fear of going to public places.
If a patient was COVID-19 positive, got treated, now they are negative and discharged home, and they are not severely immunocompromised. They are practicing social distancing, using standard precautions. They are completely safe. Even with couples that have gone through this route and there's no fever within 24 hours, they are asymptomatic, they are using all the standard precautions, they can resume their sexual lifestyle and intimacy.
If they say you had a coronavirus and you survived it, don't wait whether somebody else is going to like you, or because you went there you should be stigmatized or whatever. Who knows? Who have tested everybody? Who have tested those that are stigmatizing you?
Citing Lagos State as a case study, government is still searching for those who ran away out of fear of being identified with the virus. Health workers are also ensuring the privacy and confidentiality of patients. This is targeted at protecting tested cases, especially when discrimination has profound impact on the readiness of suspected cases to make themselves available for screening, testing and quarantine. Experts are urging the people to protect themselves and take responsibility to complement various efforts aimed at combating COVID-19 and be supportive of survivors instead of stigmatizing them. In Lagos, Uzezi Arure, NTA News.
And as the battle to contain the spread of COVID-19 continues to receive stakeholders' intervention and trigger scientific research for lasting solution to the disease, youths are identified as a sustainable tool in closing the gap for new infections and spread of the virus. Abubakar Usman Akwanga reports that guests on NTA's Current Affairs program Tuesday Live said this while examining the situation surrounding the reopening of schools as well as strategies and challenges of suppressing the global pandemic.
Nationwide reopened for academic exercise after 4 months of lockdown occasioned by COVID-19, but resumed classes are only for students sitting for exiting examinations. Safety measures are recommended by authorities as conditions for schools reopening, which set the stage for a temporal academic session expected to serve as a litmus test for full resumption of schools. Research shown that youth constitute high-risk population in spreading the virus. Hence, guests say the probation period should prepare schools on how to adjust to the new normals geared towards defeating COVID-19.
No pandemic remains forever, but it's going to go away with a lot of people, and we need to make sure that we are safe. We need to make sure that we are alive over the coming years so that the children that we have will have a proper upbringing, a good career, good education, etc. Health, as they say, is wealth.
What do we watch out for? We ensure that in every school, what has been specified in the guidelines are provided. The first thing is that no school child, no teacher, no visitor enters our school without a face mask.
Many of parents assist greatly by contributing when their children are coming to school, especially boarding schools. They improvise with sanitizers, face masks, and so on. Some of our associations in other states contributes immensely by contributing with face masks and sanitizers.
The speculated initial date of resumption slated for 7th September 2020 for tertiary institutions across the country was debunked, while improved strategies remained top in curbing the virus.
It's really within our hands to simply stop this. Okay. And if we can, we stop it. Once we've stopped it, everybody goes back to school. Go back to school no more. So we are architects of almost where we are. So we need to figure out how we make sure that we are safe and all of us go back to school. Okay.
Stakeholders are strengthening efforts to meet necessary safety requirements in mitigating the scourge and completely opening schools for academic progression. In Abuja, Abubakar Usman Akwanga, NTA News.
The resilience of Nigerians in handling the coronavirus pandemic has been demonstrated with a COVID-19 patient in Gombe State. Defied the challenges of the virus to go ahead and participate in the ongoing senior secondary school certificate examination in the country. Emmanuel Akila reports that the examination being conducted under strict adherence with the COVID-19 guidelines is coming at the time when Gombe State is intensifying efforts in the battle against the pandemic.
Hopes were almost lost for candidates sitting for the 2020 Senior Secondary School Certificate Examination in Nigeria. But satisfied with the containment measures and the COVID-19 prevention protocol put in place by the government, the West African Examination Council has gone ahead to conduct the examination.
In Gombe State, the arrangement is such that the candidates are encouraged, which is why one of them who tested positive for COVID-19 is sitting for the examination in the isolation center. Gombe State Commissioner for Education speaks on the arrangement.
We had a meeting between proprietors of private schools and principals of public schools to enlighten them on the basic requirements for us to open schools in a safe manner. One of which is to fumigate the school and to provide face masks for each and every student and staff.
Testing of samples. During its regular briefing and presentation of report to Governor Enwa Yahaya, the State Task Force on COVID-19 revealed that the procurement and installation of the polymerized chain reaction COVID-19 testing machine in the state is one of the reasons the state is curtailing spread of the virus.
Several attempts were made. I know what it took between us and the NCDC to get to this level. But since we've already commissioned and we're testing right here at home, I think we should thank God for that, and we should appreciate equally and thank all those that contributed to making us see the laboratory fully in operation in Gombe.
The establishment of the COVID-19 testing laboratory in the state means more tests would be done to help reduce the infection rate. In Gombe, Emmanuel Akila, NTA News.
The insecurity bedeviling parts of Niger State forced many out of their homes to take refuge in schools in some semi-urban centers, particularly in Shiroro local government area. With the resumption of exiting classes for the senior secondary school certificate examination, Mukhtar Abubakar went round to find out what the situation in such schools look like. Let's see what Mukhtar brought back.
Educationists are of the opinion that conducive environment devoid of noise and distraction aids teaching and learning. Given that Goda and Kuta Central Primary Schools are presently occupied by the internally displaced persons in Shiroro local government area of Niger State, pupils are yet to resume. But at the Kuta Central Primary School, which shares premises with the Bodo Senior Secondary School, students have resumed curricular activities. With this scenario, the IDPs are appealing to the authorities concerned to do everything possible to return them to their various villages.
Government should please help rescue some of our family members from kidnappers and secure our villages.
We need help so that we can go back and
we have no freedom. We need privacy. We want to return home. We need help.
What are the authorities doing towards moving the IDPs to a permanent camp if returning them to their homes is not anywhere visible now, in order to create an enabling environment for effective teaching and learning for the school?
Even if the school resumes, the state and federal government has to come in, because it's an issue of maybe providing the temporary shelters. No local government cannot shoulder it alone.
We are going to look at the possibility of the resumption only if they are writing national examinations. We look for alternative schools for our children. We will not displace the IDPs.
The internally displaced persons had left their villages to take refuge in the camps to avoid being killed or kidnapped by bandits and kidnappers operating within some forests around Niger and Kaduna states. In Kuta, Mukhtar Abubakar, NTA News.
Government should come up with a policy that will uphold the right of every child to good and quality education, as well as encourage the teachers' welfare. This was the view of experts on the Conference on Child Rights to Education, with the theme mitigating the increasing risk of out-of-school children exploitation in Nigeria posed by COVID-19. And Oyemi Ajayi has that.
With the outbreak of COVID-19, the whole world came to a standstill, bringing in a change in people's lifestyle. As part of measures to curb the spread of COVID-19, significant decline in human interaction due to social distancing, as well as suspension of activities in many sectors, including the education sector, became imperative. Based on the 2018 UNICEF statistics, about 258 million out-of-school children were recorded, with Nigeria having the highest number. With the prevalence of COVID-19, the reality is more evident.
Apart from the atrocities meted out on out-of-school children by adults in whose care they are or members of the society as a result of the lockdown occasioned by COVID-19, a UNICEF report indicates that many children may not return to school after the pandemic.
There is therefore need for high-level, middle-level and low-level campaign visits.
This has raised the concern of many who believe that governments at all levels should take responsibility of ensuring that children are given quality education in line with the Goal 4 of the Sustainable Development Goals of the United Nations.
Also the teachers, they should be encouraged, their welfare, and that they should be also encouraged in other means.
The impact of COVID-19 remains glaring. It is the consensus here that no child should be excluded from education, as it is one on which a solid foundation of a great nation is built. In Abuja, Oyemi Ajayi, NTA News.
Since the outbreak of COVID-19 in Nigeria, thankfully, not a single case has been recorded in custodian centers across the country. Observers have attributed this to adherence to advice, protocols, and provision of relevant health facilities. It is to ensure the continued safety of inmates that some partners have donated palliatives to the Nigeria Correctional Service. Victor Azu brings us details of the donation.
Nigeria's custodial centers have so far been kept free of the rampaging COVID-19, but it has not come easy. Officials of the Nigerian Correctional Service say it takes a lot of effort and finance to ensure the safety of over 60,000 inmates in these times. It is in recognition of this that partners, the Prisons Rehabilitation and Welfare Actions Prawa and the Open Society Initiative for West Africa, OSIWA, have come together to provide palliatives to ensure continued safety of staff of the Correctional Service and inmates. Presenting thousands of nose masks and face shields, hand wash facilities and spray cans for disinfection, as well as computers and accessories. The donors say it is to strengthen the safety measures already put in place by the service.
At the very minimum, we believe that all correctional officers in the country should have the face mask.
Our intervention in these COVID times was also to prove that OSIWA is considering everybody, every vulnerable person, every marginalized group cannot be forgotten in these times.
The gesture will go a long way, the Controller General admits, but appeals for more support from other good-spirited Nigerians and organizations.
And what I will urge is for the Nigerian press to continue to converse for support for the Nigerian Correctional Service in order to provide these PPEs and the rest of them so that we continue to maintain the hygiene that has assured that there is no COVID-19 in any of our custodial centers.
With some of the items donated, the inmates can now resume interacting with their families without the risk of infection that comes with physical contact. In Abuja, Victor Azu, NTA News.
How would you feel when you get a pat on the back from your boss in recognition of your contributions towards achieving corporate goals? You feel good, I suppose. But you must also know that the reward of hard work is more work. Correspondent Jide Onifade in this report tells us how 3 members of staff of the State House were honored by the management for their selfless service, especially in the response to the coronavirus pandemic.
In the views of many, a pat on the back for a committed employee will go a long way as encouragement for the worker to do more. Take the case of these 2 health workers at the State House Clinic, for example, who, in the face of the coronavirus pandemic, put in more efforts to protect members of the State House community from the pandemic. Dr. Ibrahim Bashir and Dr. Eze Chukwu have been watched by all, and their efforts are recognized by the management.
I will personally.
This brief ceremony is put up to appreciate the duo, and it comes as a surprise.
It feels really nice to be called out, singled out of a multitude of other doctors who are also doing excellently well.
And up to the very minute when this award is coming, I didn't know about it, but I'm very excited.
Maurice Agueri is a Deputy Director Planning and the State House Savicom Nodal Officer who is retiring after years of meritorious service. He's here being honored for his selfless service.
That time, and State House has benefited tremendously because of their own sacrifice, because of their own large heart.
Entering here, you will see the service standards. Worked with the team.
Because we are the ones that will help the administration deliver to the people. So a lot more is expected from us.
The ceremony may be brief, but the impact is huge, something that can serve as a propelling force for other staff members. Jide Onifade, NTA News.
Great to have you back on News Extra. An international conference aimed at reawakening the conscience of Africans towards harnessing their common heritage and values is underway in Benin, Edo State. The conference is at the instance of the Center for Black and African Arts and Civilization in collaboration with the Faculty of Arts, University of Benin. Good luck, Enaini has the details.
Africa is historically described as the cradle of civilization. Undoubtedly, its cultural heritage and identity epitomize the true symbol of her nobility. The richness and diversity in the presentation and preservation of these African cultures remain a significant factor in the quest for the development of the continent. This virtual conference with the theme Sharing Black and African Creative Energy, Consolidating Africa's Heritage and Identity in the 21st Century, is looking at the various ways Africans' creative energy can be harnessed and deployed for the consolidation of our identity.
An attempt to address, race issues that concern the creative industry will be very, very important to the policymakers.
In our culture, we have a lot to tap into in order to give us development, to give us economic elevation.
The ministry over the years has made tremendous efforts in preserving and showcasing all aspects of our rich culture.
Participants want Africans to harness the continent's comparative advantages in order to take its pride of place.
Africans must identify those things that make us unique as Africans.
In banking, we're already in a digital economy. It's slow, it's picking up. But in the cultural industry, that transition has not taken place the way it has taken place in other sectors.
Earlier, the management team of CBAC, led by Abom Tony Esu, paid a courtesy call on the Vice Chancellor, University of Benin, Professor Lilian Salami, who assured the Center of effective collaboration. Conference ends on Thursday. In Benin, Goodluck Enaini, NTA News.
In another development, the Federal Capital Territory Administration is poised to put to an end illegal mining operations in the territory due to the dangers such activities pose to the health of residents. This was the concern raised by the FCT Minister Mohammed Musa Bello when he led a delegation on a courtesy visit to the Minister of Water Resources Suleiman Adamu in his office in Abuja. Shuaibu Onoze Yakubu tells us more.
Activities of mining companies operating without proper permit from the relevant authorities in the FCT has continued to generate concern among the residents. A case in hand is the gold mining operations in Kutasa community in Amak, with the tendency of polluting the community's water source. FCT Minister Mohammed Musa Bello commended Ministry of Water Resources for drawing the attention of the FCT administration to the dangers posed by the mining activities at the affected community. He also disclosed that the administration is partnering Ministry of Water Resources to improve the quality of water from Jabi Lake.
In our records, we had no inkling whatsoever that the company was even granted a mining lease to prospect for gold in an area within the FCT. And the company went ahead and entered into agreements with the local communities without the knowledge of the traditional structure as well as the local government administration structure.
Minister of Water Resources Suleiman Adamu says issues of water pollution emanating from mining activities needed to be addressed with utmost urgency.
There was a viral video and we took notice of it very quickly. There was some hue and cry about pollution of the water, the only source of water running in that community, as it were. Well, whether it's the only source or not, the fact that it's polluting the environment was a lot of serious concern to us.
It will be recalled that mining activities resulted to lead poisoning in Niger State in 2016. Shuaibu Onoze Yakubu, NTA News.
And to security now, the Nigerian military, through the Directorate of Defense Media Operations, says the Air Task Force of Operation Lafia Dole has neutralized some Islamic State of West Africa province ISWAP commanders and knocked out logistics facilities at Bukar Meram on the fringes of Lake Chad in Borno State and at Dole, a settlement in the southern part of Borno State. The air interdiction missions were executed on 17th of August 2020 under subsidiary Operation Hailstorm following credible intelligence reports indicating a resurgence of terrorist activities in the two settlements. Attacks by NAF fighter jets and helicopter gunships on Bukar Meram, a major ISWAP logistics hub linking other island settlements of the Lake Chad and Dole, hits designated areas, leading to the destruction of logistics facilities and neutralization of no fewer than 20 fighters and some key leaders. In the meantime, Nigeria Police Force Lagos Command in the last 1 month has successfully arrested 27 armed robbery suspects and foiled 22 attempts within the state. At a media briefing in Lagos, State Commissioner of Police Hakeem Odumoshu warned criminals to stay away from Lagos as more efforts are being put in place to make the state safe for residents. Hinginojan Adams has the report.
On the 4th of August 2020, Special Anti-Robbery Squad operatives SARS arrested 2 male suspects, Onyebuchi Chidoze and Ifeanyi Odo, who persistently broke into shops and warehouses at Alaba International Market, Lagos, stealing goods worth millions of naira in the process.
They give us the market to set for them. They will keep the market for getting 2 months now. So it's a friend that lets police to give police information. That's how they got us to here.
Another suspect, Kazim Lawal, a cultist, was arrested by the police. A gun, cartridges and cutlasses were recovered from his possession. He confessed that he was initiated into the fraternity by a friend over a year ago and has since then been a member of the Aye gang.
One of my boss, that is the one that bring the gun, and in the court he told me that if I say it, that they will kill me, and I ran away. But when he comes to visit me at home, he just brought the gun, but later I hear that he's dead.
Meanwhile, on COVID-19 enforcement, the Lagos State Police Command says it has arrested 769 violators. Out of the number, 515 were arrested for violating curfew. 98 were arrested for not wearing face mask. 55 were arrested for not maintaining social distance.
We want to warn members of the public. Where incidents happens, people are being lynched. Instead of you going to rescue now, they will be having a video recording, clapping hands. Jungle justice is against the law. So anybody that won't participate in it, anybody that aid and abet now is conspiracy. So those that are doing such things now, they should desist from that. Because not only perpetrators.
Commissioner of Police Hakeem Odumosu reiterated the commitment of the police to fighting crime in the state, adding that the force will not relent until the state is secure for residents. In Lagos, Hinginojan Adams, NTA News.
Drug abuse, no doubt, is a global problem and it is getting bigger. A lot is also being done to tackle this menace in Nigeria. It's good news to hear the National Drug Law Enforcement Agency in Plateau State say it is winning the war against drug abuse and trafficking. It destroyed over 16,000 kilograms of illicit substances, as Ekemeren Kaneng Ladoja tells us.
Contrary to the long-standing notion that cannabis is the most widely abused drug in Plateau State, the setting ablaze of these drugs points to the fact that there's a drug abuse trend, which the NDLEA describes as pervasive and disturbing, a drug abuse of prescription drugs such as cough syrup, codeine and tramadol.
Recent research findings show that illicit drug use in Nigeria has reached a pandemic proportion. Indeed, that is a true pandemic. It is worrisome to know that the menace has permeated every facet of the society.
The command arrested 1,530 suspects from 2016, 2017, 2018, and 2019.
Security key players and the traditional institutions say strategic thinking and cooperation amongst key players is required to win the war against drugs.
Hardly any crime without drug at the background. So we're working in perfect synergy.
Do get some of these members of the National Drug Law Agency to come and assist us in our areas.
3,592.862 kilograms of cannabis sativa, 13,104.799 kilograms of psychotropic substances, and 7.2 grams of cocaine, all seized between 2016 to 2019, were destroyed by the NDLEA. In Jos, Ekemeren Kaneng Ladoja, NTA News.
And as the search for lasting peace in southern Kaduna continues. The Catholic bishops of Kaduna Ecclesiastical Province, which comprises Kaduna, Zaria, Kano, Mina, Kontagora, Sokoto and Kafanchan, have added their voices to the plea for sincere commitment of all stakeholders to the peace project. My Jama'a Adamu reports.
Although the Catholic bishops are in Kafanchan for their provincial meeting, the breach of peace in southern Kaduna is a priority on their agenda. Their entourage visited Agwatiap, chief of Kagoro and the Emir of Jama'a, on sympathy and peace advocacy mission. Archbishop Matthew Ndagoso, who spoke on their behalf, explained that peace and normalcy can only be restored if the people generally resolve to put aside their differences in the spirit of one broad humanity. While calling on government not to abandon the people even if they do not agree on issues, the bishop also challenged the political class in the area to rise beyond boundaries of ethnicity, party and religious affiliation and see their people as one, bound by common destiny.
What we're experiencing in Sokoto, Zamfara, that axis, is a lot of it is pure banditry, is pure criminality. But there are places where there are conflicts that, you can actually apply the phrase, it takes two to tango. Where there's this kind of conflict, I don't think blame game will help the situation.
In their responses, Agwatiap, Dominic Yahaya, Chief of Kagoro, Ufuai Bonnet, and Emir of Jama'a Muhammadu Isa Muhammadu, described happening in the southern Kaduna as worrisome, and reiterated their resolve to support all sincere effort towards ushering peace and unity among the diverse communities. Special prayers and donations were offered by the spiritual leaders. In Kaduna, Majama Adamu, NTA News.
And our final break for the night, after which we bring you sports.